Parts of the string instrument. So the members of the string instrument family include the violin, the viola, the cello, and the bass. Now these instruments are made of wood, and we want to make sure that our instrument has a wood grain finish to it. So it's not like pink or blue or green. There have to be a wood grain finish to have the best sound and just to, make everything look really, really uniform. So each string instrument creates sound by doing one of the following things, and I think we've probably talked about this before. We can pluck the strings by using our fingertip, not our fingernail, but our fingertip, or we can pull or push the bow across the strings. So each part of a string instrument has a very specific name, so we're going to take a quick look at these specific parts, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one, just so you have a reference when we start looking at them in person. So here's an outline of the parts of the violin or the parts of the viola and the bow. Starting at the top, we have a very fancy little part. It's got a little curvature to it. It's called the scroll. All right. Right below that are 4 pegs. They operate and tune the 4 strings. There's a long piece of black wood. It's called the fingerboard. Of course, you have the strings that traverse from the bottom of the instrument to the top of the instrument. The upper part of violin and viola is called the upper body. The lower part is called the lower body, right? Those little holes on the top of the violin or viola are called the F holes. There's a small piece of wood. It's mostly lightly colored, like a light color blonde wood. It sits in between the top of the instrument and the strings, and we call that the bridge. And its job is to raise the strings up so that we can tune them and then make them taut enough or tight enough so that we can have them make vibrations, and that's how we make sounds. Below that, on the violin, the viola, and on the cello, we have what's called fine tuners. So the pegs are what tune the strings mostly to the right pitch, but the fine tuners are going to get us that little bit extra right to where it's going to be in tune. The fine tuners are attached to the strings, and the strings are attached also to a piece called the tailpiece, and that happens to be the thing that pulls the strings from the top of the instrument to the bottom of the instrument. On the violin and viola, we have what's called a chin rest. That's where we put our jaw when we're playing to keep it in place. At the very bottom, we have a button, and it looks like a button, and we pull the tailpiece onto the button. Now, for all of our instruments, we have a bow, and the bow has just a few parts. At the very top of the bow is called the tip. It's got a little pointy end. The wood part that is the longest part of the instrument is called the stick. On the other side, we have the horsehair or the string, right? We're going to say horsehair. And we use what's called rosin to rosin the bow so that it's sticky enough to pull the string on the instrument. We have a part called the bow grip, which is a black, felty, rubbery kind of thing that we rest our part of our hand on. The frog pulls the horsehair so that the horsehair is tight enough to have, that's the dog shaking, if you didn't hear it, to pull the string from the hair. So the frog pulls the hair on the bow, and then the hair on the bow pulls the string on the instrument. The last part is the adjusting screw, and the adjusting screw is really important because it's what allows us to tighten the string or the horsehair on the bow. So if we turn it to the right, the hair gets tighter. If we turn it to the left, it gets looser. Now we need to remember this every time we use the bow, because if we keep it tight all the time, our hair on our bow is going to fall off. All right, so we got to loosen the bow hair before we put it away and tighten the bow hair when we're playing. So here's a picture of the cello and the bass. They have similar parts, but there's one part that's a little bit different. Notice that we have the scroll, pegs, fingerboard, there's a neck, it says there's a back, string bridge, tailpiece, end pin. So the big thing that's different from the cello and the bass and the violin and the viola is that the bass and the cello have what's called an end pin, and they do not have a chin rest because they're too big to put up on our chin, right? This picture shows us in a little bit more detail some other parts of the instrument that all of our string instruments have. The peg box is where the pegs screw into. The nut is the top part of the fingerboard that the strings come off of that allow us to make sound. The top of the instrument, the part that everyone sees when we go to an orchestra concert, is called the top, and the back is called the back. Easy. And then the part opposite the fingerboard, we call that the neck. So we're going to practice labeling our own instrument. So we're going to go back to Canvas and we're going to work on labeling. And if you have a printer and you want to print it out and color it, you're more than happy to. I'd love to see your creations.